Alrighty, we are live with the live launch of the StackMarket 250. Got myself, co-founder of BetterTracker, Matt Solomon, and with me, as always, I guess. I don't know. We haven't. It's been a long time since we've gone live together, but
When's the last time we've done this?
it's been a very long time.
Wow. It's like riding a bike though, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I believe you're in your office. I recognize that, and I'm actually here live at ThreatLocker's Zero Trust event in Orlando. My first time being here, and I think they've got about 600 to 1,000 people here. I think so. Pretty big event down here. Yeah.
Cool. Any interesting insights or tidbits from the event?
Well, it's interesting because there's very few events that we attend in the MSP space where it's a blend of MSP and end user. So it's interesting talking to uh, we talked to like some high up IT person at like Red Lobster today. So like in the Church of Latter-day Saints. So it's just interesting to have different conversations, hear the pain points, many of the same pain points that you hear from managed service providers, even at the mid-size and larger part of the ecosystem. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Great. Good
Yeah.
stuff. Well, look, we're here to talk about some interesting capabilities that we have launched or data that we've exposed to the marketplace. This is a culmination of uh, our building out this platform for the last 4 or 5 years to help MSPs and end users make better decisions when it comes to their technology stack and just overall technology sprawl. So we'll talk about the stack market in here in a moment, but I think it's important to kind of talk about the origin of the data that we're going to show and why we're showing it. So over the last several years, we've kind of brought to the market a tool, essentially a free tool for MSPs to go in and build out their technology stack. Because really, it was the first tool that would help an MSP visualize what they're using, right, across hundreds and hundreds of product categories. And when we launched it, we often say, we launched it early on. We had the impression that the average MSP was using somewhere around 20 to 30 maybe tools, products. But we quickly saw that the average MSP is working with about 80 different technologies. In fact, I think the latest data now that we've seen because of the world of AI and the sprawl that's going on with these AI enabled solutions, we're closing in on 90, 91 different products that an MSP is using to run their business and deliver services to their customers. So we've spent the last couple of years looking at this data and figuring how can we make it useful for the industry. What can we do to kind of help the industry make better decisions? Of course, maintaining that air of anonymity, and but really trying to build out a platform that provides value to both the MSPs and soon to be some value to the vendors to help them make better decisions about entering the marketplace. And so, yeah, this is a combination of several years of helping MSPs figuring out their technology sprawl, managing their technology stack, and more recently, over the last year, we've allowed the MSPs to come in and integrate their bank account and credit cards so they can see all their subscription sprawl. They can authenticate to Microsoft to bring in all of the applications they're using Microsoft to authenticate to. We'll have some releases from some other IDEs coming up, but this has just created this tremendous world of data that we now can package and bring back and help for the first time, legitimately for the first time, show market share of the vendors across the top 50 categories. And that's what we're calling basically the StackMarket 250. But as mentioned before, we have insights across a couple hundred product categories across thousands of vendors and thousands of products. And so you'll see this platform evolve here quite significantly coming up. So I don't know if Matt, if you want to add anything, I'm going to share my screen here just to show kind of the basic visual here
Yeah.
real quick.
Well, I think I'd want to add some context around like this is not some small like sample size, right? I mean, just from Navistack alone, we're talking 60,000 products that have been added, and that's not even including other areas of the platform. So I mean, just from that alone, the volume is really impressive data. And I think the word that kind of comes back to my head is transparency, right? It's like MSPs have never had access to this type of information.
Yeah.
So I think, for them to be able to see it, see what others are using, and I guess maybe before we actually show it, I mean, Kevin, because I'll give you credit on this, like this was your idea, this particular feature to show. I guess what ultimately made you to decide, or how did you decide to come up with it?
There's a couple of reasons, right? One, we often get questions or asked on our chat, or a lot of our team gets asked, right? Well, what are the technologies we should be looking at? Who are the most popular vendors in a certain product category? And this ends up being more anecdotal or word of mouth. There's never really been kind of a true snapshot of what the heck's going on in this industry, and showing product usage or popularity, by rank, right? So who are the most popular vendors in these product categories? And that's not anything that's ever been surfaced. I think a lot of people have assumptions, and there's a lot of marketing, hype and fluff out there. But so I think on one hand, we want to help the users understand who are the more common vendors across these product categories. And as we build this out, as I mentioned, we will show across a couple hundred technology categories, but then we'll take it a step further beyond just the traditional stack, because we can start looking at, well, who are the most popular insurance providers? Who are the most popular healthcare providers? Who are the most popular payroll providers within this industry? And so I think that's really valuable insight when you're looking to make decisions on working with vendors that that you never really had that kind of dynamic before. You've got basically some survey data, and you can buy your way to the top on some of the sites like G2 and all that stuff. But yeah, I think this is really we threw out some really big words early on when we were launching at the time what we call channel program. We talked about democratizing the industry and what have you, and this is a continuation of that. So I don't know if you have to add my screen. I don't know if I'm sharing it.
I can add it, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I feel like we should get into showing it now.
Yeah, cool.
And it might be helpful if you're able to zoom a little bit, Kevin.
Am I able to zoom? Let me see if I can zoom without making it look kind of funky. All right, cool. So you'll see across the top of the site, basic ticker, right? I wouldn't say, a lot of this is original, but we definitely did borrow from the stock market, if you will. But this is a ticker of who's most popular by rank in these different categories. Now, it's interesting in that we allowed the user to select a product, but then we gave them the freedom to put it in what category they seemed uh, uh, that was most applicable, or how they use a specific product. So there's some normalization of the data, based on primary product category and as it rolls up to the vendor. But yeah, in general, this is a snapshot across the top 50 most common product categories within an MSP technology stack. Now, this is sorted by top level category. So you'll see the first four here are authentication, and then we get into backup and recovery. But you can see across these categories where the vendors rank. We have another view that will come out here that we'll have embedded into the MSP view, and we'll have it embedded to a vendor view, where you'll see even market change, so the fluctuation. So what rank are they, and then we'll show percentage of market share, what have you. But for the first pass of it, we're showing market share. But if you start scrolling down, right, again, this is a combination or a grouping of the 50 most common product categories across the technology stack. And there's actually a few additional categories put in here, like distributors, hardware distributors, and I think we even have a category in here for peer groups. But These, broadly speaking, represent the most common elements or attributes that the MSPs are tracking within their Navistacks.
Yeah, and again, I think it's important to note this is 100% controlled by the MSPs and the tools that they're adding to their stack.
Yeah, and this is not even the great thing about this. This is not survey. This has nothing to do with the product reviews, right? That we have thousands and thousands and thousands of product reviews. This is just simply a snapshot of what's been brought in and tracked, across thousands and thousands and thousands now of technology stacks. So yeah, so this is a very objective, independent visualization or view of what's going on in these certain product categories. And so, as you might expect, we've dropped down the communications, several categories for communications between chat, voice, conferencing, VoIP. You get into compliance, but then, some of you might have seen the industry reports we've put out there. Most recent one was an IT management one. We had another cybersecurity one not too long ago, but some of these top level categories like cybersecurity have 40 plus product categories in them. So you can see just in general across the stack, the top level cybersecurity product category is the most common, most popular, as you might expect, within a technology stack. Right. So scrolling down, looking through the MDR phase, looking in phishing, security awareness training, ransomware, whatever you're starting to see, who is gaining, the largest amount of market share in this space, right? Keep going down a little bit more. Yep, go on.
Yeah. No, you can keep going, but yeah, I mean, it's, if I'm looking at this for the first time, I mean, I'll just say like one thing that like stood out to me and stood out from very early on is like, you just look at like password management. Like, traditionally the vendors who dominate any of these categories are the vendors who you see at events and things like that. But the truth is, up until recently, Keeper, you really didn't see at MSP events, but it was by far, listed as the number one password manager. And it's really interesting to see because that kind of goes against the grain of the traditional marketing spend from a vendor perspective. And now you are seeing them actually invest a lot more in MSP space. I've seen that at several events now. But that one always stood out to me.
Yeah.
And then I
And
guess
it's
Kevin,
great.
Okay.
Great rationale behind that. I mean, low cost, quality product, but low cost, very low entry point, and they were able to gain, quite a bit of market share, especially on the kind of the smaller end of the marketplace. So yeah, that was one of those interesting revelations that you realize across the board how pervasive they were.
Yeah, and then Kevin, you alluded to the fact that like we will go beyond this, this list of 50 categories. I don't know. You want to talk about, because I know you're a big proponent. Obviously, the entire world's talking about AI tools, but I know in the platform we're really expanding our categories because that has to be. I mean, we're all adding all these SaaS products from AI, so that we have to start representing that in our stack. And I think MSPs are all over the place, and their customers are all over the place in terms of this stuff.
Yeah, look, we have some really interesting early data on the popularity and pervasiveness of these new AI tools. I mentioned that we took a snapshot of the average number of the technologies that an MSP was using a couple of months ago. The average was 88.1. I got to get the actual number that we were running, but I think it was like 96.7 or something like that, just over the last 2 months. And that additive, another 6, 7 products were, as you imagine, quite a few of the LLMs, right? So the AI, native type tools, and then there's obviously a whole slew of AI enabled platforms that are out there. The interesting thing about those categories, and one of the reasons why we didn't launch with it, is that it's going to take maybe another 2 months or so to really normalize it, because what we've seen, particularly on the transactional side, is that an MSP or user would sign up for the latest vibe coded tool or the newest AI video maker, clip maker. They sign up, they put their credit card in, they get hit for that first month, and then they cancel, right? Or they're using 6 or 7 different new AI tools the vast majority of them were asking for a credit card up front. They get that first one, they forget about it, and they cancel. So there's some really interesting trend data that we'll start exposing when it comes to these AI tools. But if you look at it, though, as you mentioned, Matt, the sprawl is absolutely accelerating, and the number of different categories is accelerating. So we did a call for product reviews, and we have some campaigns out there, and part of that call was to say, look, we added another, I don't know the exact number, but another 20 or 30 different AI categories, again, between the AI native platforms and the AI enabled tools. And yeah, that's just a tip, because when you go beyond that core group of AI specific tools for the MSP stack, you go beyond that and look at all of these new AI marketing tools, AI, name them. There's million, even like infrastructure tools. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Everyone's probably overwhelmed in their social feeds by how many new AI tools are out there. But again, so it'll take a little bit to normalize that. We want to make sure that we capture the right trend data and then report it back. But yeah, make no mistake that AI wave is hitting this marketplace something fierce. I mean, this is going to be really interesting evolution. So the next iterations of StackMarket will, again, we'll have menu across the top that'll break it out by top level category. So across the top you'll see cybersecurity and distribution, and you can drill down into those categories, and we'll add dozens and dozens, maybe another 100 categories in here. But then same thing on the AI side, we'll add in probably another, every day you're creating a new, basically, product category in the AI space. And so we'll figure out how to really visualize that and show it to everybody. But even within our space, I was talking to a vendor yesterday that their emerging vendor doing quite well, but they are really trying to separate themselves, and they're looking to create their own category in this space. And I think a lot of vendors, because some of these product categories are so saturated with a couple dozen to several dozen vendors, everyone's looking for that soundbite or way to describe themselves a little bit, a little bit different, context, right? To create their own category, separate themselves from the pack. And so some have done it quite successfully. Some, it might be a little bit of a stretch, might be more of a marketing kind of spin, but nevertheless, we'll expand these product categories to show really some of the emerging categories that are coming up.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be obviously mission critical for MSPs to figure out which tools they're going to be using, which they're going to be deploying to their end users when it comes to AI. Because I did a poll, and there was 5 options, and right now 77% of the response are, the question is, what are your clients actually doing with AI? And 77% either answered actively deploying AI tools or experimenting cautiously. So it's going to be really important for MSPs to understand, like, what are the leaders in the space? What are our peers using? Not just depending on reviews, but also looking at, when we have the categories that listed here, is what are people actually buying? But I've already heard horror stories that you mentioned, Kevin, of MSPs signing up for all of these different AI tools, forgetting about them, and, like, seriously losing lots of money just because they forget about the fact that it was a month to month, but it keeps charging. And I know we had personally an MSP using BetterTracker that found almost $20,000 of wasted spend on AI tools, because you just move on, and because it's all happening so fast, so.
Yeah, I mean, not that it's a commercial for the BetterTracker platform itself, but that's fundamentally what's happening, right? It's it's the sprawl. It's forgot about it. It's it's somebody in that marketing role that has been using these 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 different tools to perfect their craft and do their business, and that person left, and there was no accountability, right? And it's just you don't find out about it until you look in the rearview mirror in the QuickBooks, and you find out that you've been overspending. And so on the BetterTracker side of that platform for the MSPs, they're able to see all these applications that you're using, assign it not just to the department, but assign it to that individual that's responsible for that tool or that renewal. And the event that person leaves, at least you have still that visibility of what the heck's going on in the business. I mean, we saw yesterday, I guess every day we get these interesting stories, but we had another MSP yesterday that said they found $50,000 in overspending, like $50,000. And that was right at the point of onboarding with our team. So yeah, so it's we've built this as a way to really provide tremendous amount of insight into what's going on in your stack and your expenses and your business. And then, as we progress, we'll show more from the stack standpoint. And then what I'm really excited about, and it's, you know, uh, several weeks out, but I'm really excited about a lot of the benchmarking that we'll be able to show the MSPs. So really what's going on in not just the product categories, but what are the averages? What are your peers using, and what's the average spend, and helping you kind of really understand and what you should be, how you compare. I mean, there's going to be a lot of benchmarking that'll come out again to help help the industry make better decisions and run their businesses more effectively and more profitably.
Yeah. And I mean, so we're approaching 22 minutes now. So I think we've gone way longer than we originally
Yeah,
said.
we thought what 5-10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what I would kind of start to leave it towards is like, hopefully, I think we're delivering on the promise that we made 4 years ago, which is
Yeah.
bringing transparency back to this industry like no one has ever done. Nothing like this exists. So hopefully, if you've made it this long into the live feed, hopefully you see that we're delivering on that. I used to joke a little bit about, I would say we're the last beacon of hope, because we're the last. There's very few agnostic platforms that exist for MSPs to have this information. So I'm going to continue to say that we're one of the last beacons of hope. So I'm going to stand
We
by
are
it.
looking
I
at
think
it.
we're
Comes from
proving
the
it.
fact that, yeah, I've been an MSP, been a vendor, been on both sides or multiple sides of this marketplace. And inevitably I struggled, certainly on the MSP side, to figure out, like, what should we be using, what what's going to impact our business, and at that point you're going out in the forums and asking people's opinions and stuff, and that's very invaluable. And that's a great thing about the peer groups. But ultimately we want to provide the unbiased empirical evidence of what's going on in this marketplace. And so you'll see us really leaning into this and providing a ton more insight, objective insight, anonymized insight, to help you guys make better decisions.
Yep. And it's available for your full visibility right at bettertracker.com/StackMarket. It's not behind a firewall. It is available to you right now. So go check it out. And I think we can probably end things on that.
Let's do that.
All right.
Enjoy your event down there, and
Yep.
we'll keep tracking.
Sounds good. Thanks,
All right.
everyone.